there, I'm Rachel with the Charlotte Mason Plenary. Thank you for joining me for another video in our series of Finding Your Way with Charlotte Mason's 20 Principles. Today we're talking about principle number 8, education is a life. In saying that education is a life, the need of intellectual and moral as well as of physical sustenance is implied. The mind feeds on ideas, and therefore children should have a generous curriculum. So when Charlotte says education is a life, she means ideas. Again, now in Principle 6, she talked about ideas as a thought environment in our homes as regards to atmosphere, but here she's talking about the ideas that we choose to expose our children to via their education. Because the mind, like the body, requires food. But what kind of food is best? Now, as mothers, we plan meals, 3 meals a day plus snacks, and it can be monotonous, but we know that it's important, so we do it. And Charlotte is saying that we should take the same kind of care in regards to what we offer our children in their education. For the mind is capable of dealing with only one kind of food. It lives, grows, and is nourished upon ideas only. Mere information is to it as a meal of sawdust to the body. So the ideas are the individual dishes that we offer our children at the feast that is a Charlotte Mason education. It's the ideas that we serve. Now, if you were to put on a grand meal, a grand banquet, you would offer several different kinds of foods. And you would hope that your child would taste a little bit of this and a little bit of that and eat a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And after he's eaten, you would know that he has taken in everything he needs for growing a healthy body. Well, the Charlotte Mason feast is exactly like that grand meal. Instead of meat, you offer history. Instead of veggies, literature. The table is filled with geography, citizenship, picture study, handicrafts, poetry. Now, our children might not assimilate every idea that we offer them, but they still get to taste everything and decide for themselves what they choose to assimilate. Probably he will reject 9/10 of the ideas we offer, as he makes use of only a small proportion of his bodily food, rejecting the rest. He is an eclectic. He may choose this or that. Our business is to supply him with due abundance and variety, and his to take what he needs. Urgency on our part annoys him. He resists forcible feeding and loathes pre-digested food. What suits him best is pabulum presented in the indirect literary form. So it isn't just the act of serving ideas, it's also how we serve them. Now let's take a look at that last line one more time. What suits him best is pabulum presented in the indirect literary form. And the definition of pabulum is food in a state that is suitable for absorption. So, for example, you wouldn't hand your child a few stalks of wheat and call it dinner, right? First you have to grind up the wheat into flour, and then you take the flour and you make it into bread. And you serve that to your child because it's both digestible and appealing. Now you could also say that, well, why don't we throw all of dinner into a blender, blend it up, and serve that to our child, because then it's very easily digested. And that would be true, but it wouldn't be very appealing or appetizing. And so what does Charlotte say is the most absorbable and appealing way to present ideas? Well, she says it's living books full of ideas. It seems to be necessary to present ideas with a great deal of padding as they reach us in a novel or poem or history book written with literary power. A child cannot, in mind or body, live upon tabloids, however scientifically prepared. Out of a whole big book, he may not get more than half a dozen of those ideas upon which his spirit thrives. And they come in unexpected places and unrecognized forms, so that no grown person is capable of making such extracts from Scott or Dickens or Milton as will certainly give him nourishment. But what is an idea? Now, we've talked about this before, and here's what Charlotte says. What is an idea, we ask, and find ourselves plunged beyond our depth. A live thing of the mind seems to be the conclusion of our greatest thinkers, from Plato to Bacon, from Bacon to Coleridge. We all know how an idea strikes us, seizes us, catches hold of us, impresses us, and at last, if it be big enough, possesses us. In a word, an idea behaves like an entity. Now, does that quote sound familiar? We discussed it back in Principle 6. It first comes up in Volume 2, and then she repeats it here in Volume 6 because she is driving home the principle that ideas should be clothed upon with fact, story, and history. That an idea needs all of those things for the mind to assimilate it. It's the story, it's the literary form that makes it come alive, and that's why we call them living books, because it makes ideas come alive. And unfortunately, if you're given an idea as an abstraction without the story or the details surrounding it, the mind cannot assimilate it. And unfortunately, that's the way that most education is taught today. But here in this next quote, Charlotte gives us an example about how science can be taught with living books. Scientific truths are battles won. Describe to the young the principal and most heroic of these battles. You will thus interest them in the results of science, and you will develop in them a scientific spirit by means of the enthusiasm for the conquest of truth. How interesting arithmetic and geometry might be if we gave a short history of their principal theorems. If the child were meant to be present at the labors of a Pythagoras, a Plato, a Euclid. Great theories, instead of being lifeless and anonymous abstractions, would become living human truths, each with its own history, like a statue by Michelangelo or like a painting by Raphael. Living human truths, just as beautiful as a statue by Michelangelo or a painting by Raphael. This is what we want for our children. And so at the end of the day, you want your child to have been presented with, to have tasted all of these vital ideas. And Charlotte goes on to say that these living ideas are not sometimes food, as the Cookie Monster would say about cookies, but that they are the main course, the very bread of life. All I have said is meant to enforce the fact that much and varied humane reading, as well as human thought expressed in the forms of art, is not a luxury, a tidbit to be given to children now and then, but their very bread of life, which they must have in abundant proportions and at regular periods. This and more is implied in the phrase, "The mind feeds on ideas, and therefore children should have a generous curriculum." So the ideas that we present to our children in the form of living books is what Charlotte means by education is a life. Now for homework. Please read Chapter 6 in Volume 6, but only the third part, which is titled Education is a Life. Now you can download it as a free PDF over on the Plenary website, and the PDF also has study questions for you at the end, and I'll put that link in the description. If you like this video, please give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the little bell that lets you know when each new video is available. Thanks for watching. I hope to chat with you soon.